Hi, I'm Carrie. Welcome back to my channel. I wish you could see what's set up around me with the multiple lamps that I have from different areas of my house to try to shine enough light, and it's probably still casting shadows, and there's nothing I can do about that. I usually don't film this late at night, but this is my second attempt at this video because the first one had way too many rambles and was way too long. So what is today's video about? I posted on my community tab a couple weeks ago a question asking if anybody would be interested in me doing a video of what it's like to read for clients, and several people responded that yes, they'd be interested in that, and then I had them give me whatever questions that they wanted me to bring up during the video, and so I'm going to answer those today and throw in some of my own, experiences maybe in regards to the questions. So this is a chatty video. You don't have to watch it. You could put me on in the background, go about your day, do whatever, and just listen to what I have to say if that interests you. For those that want to watch the video, I am going to be flipping through the new seasons of the WISHLIST Oracle, but I'm really not going to be talking about it. I'm just going to flip through it so there's something visual on the screen that you can watch. So let me tell you a little bit about me and the types of readings that I do in case you're brand new here, and I do know I have some brand new subscribers, so thank you for being here. I do three-ish, four-ish types of readings. I do psychic intuition readings that use no cards whatsoever for phone and in-person readings. And I do mediumship readings that use no cards whatsoever with clients that are in person over the phone. And I also offer email and video readings where I use cards and a set spread. So I pretty much cover the basis of the different types of readings that I do for people. I use Oracle and Tarot in some of those video readings. So I've pretty much, and I do charm casting, and I've done charm readings also. So I've pretty much dabbled and done multiple types of readings. And what I'm going to say, it doesn't matter how you read, whether you want to read with just tarot, just oracle, no cards whatsoever. The things that I'm going to touch on will pretty much, cover any type of reading. It's all the same animal, just a different breed. So yeah, it covers, all of that. So I've been a reader, professional reader for 14 years. That's when I took my first paid client. And then a couple years after that, so 12 years ago, I created a Facebook group. It's now under the same name as my channel, but prior to that, it was under a different name that I was calling my, reading business. When I opened up that group or created that group, I started adding clients there that had social media. Not all of my clients do social media. I guess I should, move cards around. So anyway, but prior to that 14 years, I was doing free readings for people in my real life, for people online, and I did that for almost 4 years. That was way too long to be doing free readings. I should have cut that time limit off at close to the 2-year period, and then started taking clients then. But at that point in time in my life, I had a lot of naysayers. I had a lot of people who didn't think I should be doing this. And I had to battle against that and gain my own set of confidence, I guess, in order to feel like I was ready to move forward. So I'm going to touch on, I think, 3 things and then I'm going to get to the questions. So I was thinking about, what would I tell my younger self just starting out? What would be like the three main things that I would tell me? And the first one would be, know the basis of the cards, know about the cards, and if I'm going to do psychic readings, like what I mostly do, and mediumship, enhance your intuitive and psychic skills. Work on those and develop those. And that's what I did in the beginning, while also learning the basis of what the tarot was. So that would be the first thing, to really, hone in on my intuitive skills, which, like I said, I already did. The next thing I would tell my younger self to start out reading is to read for as many different people as you can before taking on clients. Because I found reading for friends and family, they were a lot gentler with feedback or commentary about what they thought of the reading, compared to reading for a complete stranger who didn't care about me and was going to say, yeah, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. None of this makes sense to me. So there's a big difference in reading for those that you know and reading for complete strangers. So that's one of the things I'm glad that I did way back when, is I read for as many strangers as I could for free, because I wanted to, first of all, learn what it was like to give a reading to someone I didn't know, to learn how to trust my intuition by reading for someone I didn't know. And it also gave me the opportunity to learn how to navigate different people's personalities during readings and so on. And so I really valued that time, even though, like I said, I think 4 years was too long to be doing free readings. I do value that time because I learned a lot doing it that way. One of the other things I would have told my younger self is establish stronger boundaries and know what your ethical boundaries are. Because in the beginning for me, I had a hard time with that. And I blurred too many lines. And if I could go back in time, there are certain readings that I probably would have refused, that I would have spoke up and said, no, I don't think I'm going to do this. But again, that was a whole self-confidence thing, and, feeling unsure and just trying to, I guess, almost people please during a reading also, which don't do that. So I would have told myself to develop a stronger ethical boundary, because once you start going down that rabbit hole, it becomes a very slippery slope. So that's my biggest issue from way back when, is learning where that boundary was. That's what I had the hardest time with, that I didn't think I was going to have a hard time with. And it actually was my biggest stumbling block, is that boundary of knowing when to say, I can answer this, but I can't answer that because of this reason. The other thing I would tell my younger self starting out reading is know what kind of reader that you want to be, and let clients know. I know that there are readers out there that do not read on love relationships, that do not read predictively, and they only take clients for introspective type readings or shadow readings or inner child work or things like that. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't have anybody come to me to say, I want to work on my inner child. I've never had that. I have people that come to me and I need to know what's going on in my marriage. I want to know when I'm going to find a boyfriend. Am I ever going to find love? Is he the right guy for me? Am I going to lose my job? What's happening with my company? Should I stay where I'm working at? It's things like that. It's the tangible things that's happening in their life right now. So know what kind of readings that you want to do. So if you don't want to answer those relationship or love questions, then put that boundary in place and make sure you express that to your clients whenever they're setting up their appointment with you. I read predictively. I will talk about their relationships. I will talk about their job. I will, I can't tell you how many times I've told people, look, you need to go get your tires checked, or you need to go get that car, worked on or looked at because I feel like there is something going on. You're leaking oil or whatever. I can't tell you how many times car issues have come up in readings, plumbing issues. The one a couple years ago was her foundation. I'm like, you need to get the foundation of your house checked, because if you don't get this one wall taken care of, I really feel like it's going to be a big problem for you later on. So I do, like I said, predictive style readings, and I don't have an issue with that. So but for you starting out, know what you want to do. If you don't want to do predictive style readings, I mean, you could say that up front, but like I said, the clients that come to me, they're just wanting a general reading, touched on every little bit of aspect of their life that they can fit in to our time frame. And I let them ask whatever they want to ask within my ethic boundary. Like, I will not touch on death. I will not tell them when they're going to die. I will not tell them when a loved one is going to die. And I will have to say, I think that is one of the biggest shocks that came the very first time I had that asked. That was only maybe 2 years into my readings that someone said to me, I want to know when my death date is. And I was like, what? And I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you. And she goes, oh, yes, you can. I know you can do this. And I said, I'm not going to do this for you. And then I would try to shift the conversation into or onto the next topic, subject, question, whatever. And she continued to come back to it. And I finally had to say to her, look, I've already said multiple times, I'm not going to answer that for you. So we can do one of two things. We can end the reading here and you could pay me for my time, or you've got, X amount of time left and we can continue on with our reading. And so she continued on and the topic was dropped. Those that ask about when their loved ones are going to die, even if I see it, I don't express that to them. I don't feel that that is an issue that I need to express to them. I'm not any type of medical professional, so I will not broach that subject. And what I say to them is, I think you should spend more time with your mom, or I think you should spend more time with your, partner, or whoever it may be that I may be feeling like time is running short. That, and some third-party questions like, what's going on in my adult son's life? I want to know about my adult daughter, that kind of thing. Like I said, that becomes a slippery slope, and I had to end up drawing the line with that, because those type of questions were getting out of control. And I don't feel like the parent was being malicious or asking for any type of reason than just concern for their child. Because it doesn't matter how old their child is, it is still their child. And know what your boundaries are. So I am going to try to answer these questions now. that some of my subscribers had asked on that thread. So one of the questions was, do you have clients who are not happy with their reading, and how do you handle that? I would say it's more back towards when I started out that I don't want to say that I had clients that were not happy. Maybe a couple. I would say less than a handful way back in the beginning that may not have been happy with their readings. I have never had a client sit across from me or on the phone with me tell me that reading is crap. I don't understand a single thing that you told me. Now, during the reading, they may say, "Oh, I don't know about that. That's not making any sense to me right now." And if spirit is continually pushing that down on me, my response to that has become, I understand that this doesn't make sense to you right now. I'm just asking you to tuck it in your back pocket. Maybe it's something that will come up for you later on. Maybe it's something that is going to be relevant for you in the next few days. So just kind of remember what I'm telling you right now, because I do feel this situation is going to be coming forward for you. 14 years ago, I wouldn't have handled it that way. I might have gone into a panic because I was just learning and I'm having someone telling me that they are not resonating. And if I am really believing in what I am seeing in the cards, or I am really believing in, what spirit is speaking to me and bringing through me for them, I say it. And if it resonates, it resonates, because everything may not resonate in that split second that you're delivering that message to that client. And you have to, maybe just reiterate that to them. I know this doesn't make sense to you right now, but this is really what I'm seeing coming forward for you. So it's just something to remember, think about, like I said, tuck in your back pocket for a later time. And you can put it to them in, that manner. And it makes it a little bit easier, and they'll say, "Oh, okay." And then we can move on to our next question, next topic, or, whatever the scenario may be. I would say there's only been a couple mediumship, and 14 years, maybe 2 mediumship readings that didn't resonate with a person. And one of the ones I know was because they weren't here for a mediumship reading. The only thing they wanted to know was when they were going to get engaged. And this poor grandmother wanted to come through for this girl so badly, and she wanted none of it. So it didn't matter how many things Spirit was telling me, showing me, wanting me to talk about. I had to tell Spirit to shut up, because I started and I was telling and passing all this information on, and she's like, "Look, I don't know any of this." So I was like, "Okay, just give me a minute." And I just took a second and I regrouped, and I was like, "Okay, you need to be quiet now, Spirit, not the client, and let me do this reading for her." 14 years ago, 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I probably would have been distraught over a reading like that, where the person chose to disengage and not hear the messages that their loved one was really, really, really trying to bring forward for them. And I have to let that go. I cannot take on that feeling, or all it's going to do is cause me to doubt myself. Because like I said, I presented enough evidence to this client during the reading to validate the spirit, to validate their existence, to validate things that they wanted to talk about, but it wasn't the topic that she wanted to talk about. So that had nothing to do with me. I do remember in the beginning, I had a client come who was agitated the minute they sat down in front of me. I never even spoke a word but hello. They were very agitated when they sat down with me. It had nothing to do with me. It was just them and their personality. And their one and only question was, when am I getting a boyfriend? All these other things came forward for them. And it didn't matter what I said to this client, they wanted no part of it. No part of it. They didn't want to hear any of it, but I brought it forward anyway. And it was, they wanted a date, a time, the year, the who, the where, the how of when they were going to meet their boyfriend. And there was all these other circumstances that needed to be dealt with in this person's life first before a partner was going to come forward for them. And they didn't want to deal with any of that. It was like, I don't have any issues. I just want to know when he's coming. So when I continued to try to go into what I was telling or about what I saw, their response then became, well, I just saw a psychic last night. And this is what she told me. And she said I was going to meet this guy named Brian on whatever magical date it was in the year of blah, blah, blah on this road. And I was like, okay. I said, well, if you already know that, why are you asking me the same question? Because I want to know if that's true. I want you to tell me if that's true. I said, I am not reading for you on another psychic's reading. I said, if you have additional questions for her, then you need to take yourself back to her and let her finish the reading for you. I said, I am not here to validate another psychic's readings for you. I am here to give you my reading, and this is what it is. She was furious, and I didn't care at that point. Some people, I didn't care. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sugarcoat that in any way. I didn't care that she was unhappy with it. I would never say that. I don't say that about any other client I've ever read, but that one I absolutely do. Because she was really belligerent during the whole entire thing and then tried to walk out and not pay. So yeah, that was an experience. And it was right after that I started taking, they had to pay up front before the reading. So that's a possibility also to keep in the back of your mind. And I have rambled on for I don't know how long on, what is that, question 1? Okay, so do they push you to answer things more specifically than you're comfortable with? Well, that's just kind of what I spoke about, where she wanted the date, the time, the who, the when, the where. And that's not what needed to be said to her. Other than that reading, I've never had a client push like that. I guess one other, and she wanted to know when her boyfriend was going to propose, and she wanted the exact date and the exact time. And I'm like, come on, we're not going to do a date and a time for this. So let's look into this situation and let me read the energy and see what I can see. And so I did that for her. And Spirit will show me calendars. They will flip through numbers for me, and I bring those forward for the client. So I gave her some numbers. I don't know if it ever did. I never saw that client again, which is fine. But that's what she wanted, and I answered it to the best of my ability, and then I tried to just continue to move the reading along. There's only so much you can do for that. And like I said, that's where those boundaries come in, and you have to know where to draw the line and just to say, look, I don't feel comfortable answering that, or I've already answered that to the best of what my ability is or what the cards are showing me. There's other factors at play here, so let's focus on that sort of thing. Kind of redirect them. How do you deal with yes or no questions, and do you reshape the question? I reshape the question without saying to the client, look, let's reshape this question. I said that once. It was so funny. It was a really good reading, but it was really funny because It was I can't remember the exact question now, but I do remember that it was yes or no. I'm like, well, let's look at this, reshape this. And the client, when I said that, she just looked at me and was like, reshape this? She goes, but that's my question. You asked if I had any questions, and that's my question. So I don't say anything back to the client. So when they say to me, am I going to lose my job? Let's just use that one. Am I going to lose my job? I will say, okay, so you want to know if you're, what's going on at work. I'll say that back to them in that phrase. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, that's what I want to know. What's going on at work. And then I will look into that energy. I will dive forward with that in mind of, okay, so this is what I see going on at your company right now. And this is how I see that it's affecting you. And, you've got this coworker that I really feel is like dumping on you, and so on and so on. And I will form a whole story around that was originally a yes or no question, but the truth is they really want to know what is going on with the ins and outs, of their job. And so I kind of, when I say it back to them, I reshape it without saying, oh, I'm going to change the question for you. I just go ahead and do it, and then I bring in whatever aspects are shown to me through spirit or cards or whatever, and then bring that forward for them. Okay, my next question is, has a client said a reading didn't resonate, and what did you do? I kind of touched on that also. I've never really had a client say the whole reading didn't resonate. There may have been bits and pieces of a reading didn't resonate, except for one. And this reading will haunt me forever because it was my fault. And I know it was my fault. And I take full-fledged responsibility for it. It was one of my year ahead readings way, 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 way back when I was only a couple years into doing my year ahead readings, which I've been doing for, oh my God, I think 12 years now. And at that time, I wasn't doing video readings. It was through email only. And I had the cards in front of me, and I was, going through the months and reading for this client, and I'm typing up all these things, and I'm like, this is not right. And my problem was the client had recently gotten married. I knew that the client had recently gotten married, and every single thing in that reading was the demise of the marriage. And she had only been married, maybe a month. And I saw it. It was in black and white. And I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to tell her, your marriage is going to fall to pieces, like immediately. Every card, the Tower, the Ten of Swords, the Devil, the Death card, every single one of those cards, and I'm not joking when I say that, and it just sounds, and Three of Swords, it just sounds like I'm picking out all the, negative, which I don't think there's negative, but what people label as negative cards. And they were all on the table in front of me, every single one of them. And I didn't want to tell it to her. So I chalked it up to my mistake. Oh, Carrie, you shuffled wrong. This isn't right. And I would reshuffle, and some of those cards would come out again. And I'd be like, oh, come on, your head's not in the game. I just kept blaming myself for the disastrous cards that were on the table. And that is the one and only reading that will always haunt me, that I screwed up, because I know that I did it. And I've never, ever done that again. I don't care what falls on the table, you're going to hear about it. I don't care what Spirit's telling me, you're going to hear about it, unless it's death. But other than that, you're going to hear about it. That was a big learning moment for me. I let my ego take over. I wasn't listening to my intuition. I just, it was my fault. And I gave the reading to her, and she never said anything. It was, oh my gosh, probably almost a year and a half, 2 years later, she had come to me for an in-person reading. And I brought up that year ahead reading. And she goes, oh yeah, that reading was completely wrong. My marriage fell apart, etc., etc. And I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. And I apologized to her for that. And, but yeah, I took full responsibility for that, because that was my own ego getting in the way and not listening to my intuition. And I don't do that anymore. So, but I've never had to deal with like a disgruntled client before. So, like I said, she never even brought it up to me at all. And I just let it go at that. So the next question is, how do you know that a reading is finished? And I think that's a good question, because I had a real hard time in the beginning with knowing when a reading was done. My readings were way too cheap. I undercharged myself, and I would read for people for almost an hour, and they took advantage of it. And that was a hard lesson that I had to learn. So my readings are set by time. I have approximately 30-minute readings for a set price. And that's it. When that 30 minutes is up, that reading is done. So how do I stop the, going over on readings? I will, and this is another thing, 90% of my clients will say, oh, I have so many things to ask you. And then they come and I'm like, okay, so what did you want us to focus on today? Where did you want to start? Oh, whatever you have to tell me. Just in general, whatever you need to tell me about my life. So I'll start somewhere and we'll go with that. And then I'll say, do you have any questions about what I just told you? I check in with them during the reading. I'll say, did that resonate with you? And they'll say, yes, it does, or no. And it's usually yes. And then I'll say, okay, so do you want to have any other questions about that? Or, is there something else that you want to move on to now? Oh, no, yeah. Or, I think I have one more question about my job, if that was what I was talking about. And so that's what we will do. We will go further with that. And then at the 20-minute mark, I will say to them, look, we only have 10 minutes left. If you have any sort of questions at all, now is the time to ask them, because you've got 10 minutes left to your time. And then I have them ask questions. I have clients that will say one or two things. And then a recent client, I had checked in with her multiple times throughout the reading. And then the last 10 minutes, she's like, okay, and I need to know about this and this and this. And I was like, okay. So let me see what I can see with a couple of those things. And then we'll see what time permits. And if I go over 5 minutes or so, that's okay. But I try not to push it past that. Now, if I'm reading with cards, I would have still do a time limit. If you're doing general type readings, when I read with cards, I'm doing specific readings for specific things. Year ahead, soul to soul reading, this or that, kind of a comparison type thing. So they're already set. So when that reading is finished, it's finished by the cards that are on the table. And so that's how I know when a reading is done. You have to cut it off. If you do not cut it off, you will be reading for people forever. They will just have another question and another question and another question. So you have to make sure that you set a time limit. Do I have other forms of divination that I use with clients? Sometimes I do charm readings. I don't usually do that like I said, face to face or on the phone. That's a video or email reading. I will do like charms and that. What do you do to keep your skills growing and developing? In the beginning, I felt that I had to work on this on a constant basis because I was still developing my abilities, my intuition, and learning with the cards. But now, because I do so many readings in a month, that is constantly keeping my intuitive abilities, fresh, and my mediumship abilities and that sort of thing. By using them on a constant basis with different people, I am continually keeping them, I guess, toned or honed in, or whatever word that you want to put to that. I do a ritual before I start every single reading. I do the same ritual before I start every single reading. So I have that. I am going to say this, which was not asked. Have some sort of closing ritual when you're done with your clients, because you want to get rid of that energy. You do not want that energy lingering. You do not want it hanging around in your space. You do not want to engage in that energy on a regular basis, especially if you use the same space to read for yourself. So do whatever you need to do to cleanse your space and cleanse yourself. I release all energies and cut all cords from my readings with my clients today, blah, 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 blah. However you want to handle it is, up to you, but just make sure that you are releasing them in some fashion. Let me look at my paper here. I think I have touched on every question that was posed. Oh, I almost forgot. I was looking at my paper right there. So the other questions that were asked of me is, how do I price my readings and what do I do for advertising? So I just mentioned my readings for the in-person and that are a set time for a set price. Now, my video readings are different, and I price per card. So I may do a 3-card reading for $15. Each card is $5. I do cut that off, though, at a certain point, or it would be hundreds of dollars for cards, a card reading. So like my year aheads are $40, which are pretty inexpensive compared to some other year ahead readings that I've seen. And I have a minimum of 16 cards on the table. And then if I pull any other cards that I feel that I intuitively need to pull during the reading, I may end up with 22 cards on the table. I'm not going to charge extra for that. I have my prices set for my specific readings ahead of time. I don't sit there with a client and say, okay, well, what questions do you have? It's $15 for the first 3 cards. I don't read that way. I know there are readings that are done like that, but I personally don't do that. So that's going to be up to you of how you choose to set the prices for your readings. And I'm going to say price your readings accordingly. Price them for what other readings are going for in your area, for what, you feel that you're worth. Don't undersell yourself because you think that you're not going to get any clients. That's where I made my mistake. Advertising. I've never advertised in my life. The most I've talked about my reading business is here on this YouTube channel that I've only had less than 2 years. I've never, ever, ever marketed myself ever anywhere online for any reason. Every 100%, no, 99%, because I have gotten a couple clients from my YouTube channel. 99% of my clients are word of mouth, and I have a nice size client base. And 99% of them, except for the handful that came from this channel, are word of mouth. period. I bought business cards off of Vistaprint. You can create them to have your own information of whatever you want on them. They're very inexpensive, and I bought those, a box of those, and I hand those out to clients, and I'm like, here's some business cards if you want to give them to any of your friends. That's the extent of my advertising, honestly. I have read clients. I'm in a very small town, which I have stated on this channel many, many times. However, I am an hour outside of a very large city. And I have clients that drive an hour to see me. I have clients that have driven 2 hours to have a reading off of me. I've read for clients as far north, I think, as Vermont or New Hampshire, maybe, down to Florida, over to Texas, out to California, and a bunch of states in between. I've done email readings for people in the UK and for people in Australia. So I've done readings for all kinds of different places. Oh, geez, it's late. The words are not coming anymore. So I've never spent a dime besides my cards off of Vistaprint to advertise. I get my client base by word of mouth. And I'm going to tell you, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that my client base has been 99% word of mouth, because that means that the person that had the reading with me valued that reading enough and thought that reading was good enough that they wanted to tell their friends, that they wanted to tell their family. And then that person came and they thought the reading was good enough, so they wanted to tell friends and they wanted to tell family, and so on down the line. And I have to say, I'm really proud of that fact, that that is how I've built up my client base over all these years. I have to stress, I do not do this to make a full-time living off of. We live off my husband's income. But yeah, I just, wanted to say that. So, people don't think that this is paying the bills, because it is not. But I do have a very nice size client base. So I have rambled. I know. Oh my God, I can't wait to see the timer on the on my iPad. I rambled on forever and ever, and thanks for sticking with me if you did, because and I hope I've answered all the questions that people had. And yeah, so thanks for hanging out with me. If you stuck around with me this long, I appreciate you being here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I am still trying to grow this channel here. This is harder than getting clients. I will say that. Growing this channel is harder than getting clients. But yes, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. And yeah, until I see you next time, bye.